Hello and welcome to the Prince interview today. We have Mr. Kanchan Gupta. He is Senior Advisor to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Welcome, sir, and thanks for having us here today.
Thank you.
Sir, we want to start this interview with the new information order and the news environment that we all are into now. So there is a very political and social discourse that we all know every time it goes on. A lot have been spoken about disinformation and fake news. So, sir, what government is doing about it? How government looks at it, and if there is any action you are taking. So if you can just a little elaborate on that.
Well, right now what we are looking at is the emergence of a new information order globally. A lot of it is global in nature. That means it's trans-border, transcontinental. And some of it is national or local in nature. And it is largely controlled, increasingly so, by platforms which were supposed to be intermediaries. And they were supposed to strictly follow the principle of net neutrality. So those platforms are now uh, becoming uh, news outlets, views outlets, and they are applying a lot of their own editorial discretion while doing so. The second part is the rise of digital media, uh, largely enabled by, once again, by intermediaries. And what they have done is that they have begun to nibble away at the margins of established media, traditional media, mainstream media, whatever you may wish to call it. And at the intersection of all this, we have social media and its various platforms. I I sense that democracies around the world are taking a very close look, and they are taking great interest in the emergence of this new information order. And they are also preparing how to deal with it as it begins to take full shape, form, and it gathers flesh and muscles. One part of this new information order, in fact, the bulk of it, the word information slides out of the frame and the word disinformation slides in. And to answer your question, again, governments are seriously challenged in how to deal with this. Uh, because disinformation can be very destabilizing, it can be very uh, socially, culturally unsettling, it can have economic consequences, it has national security consequences. And like terrorism, unfortunately, there are now two aspects of disinformation. There's good disinformation and there's bad disinformation. So, stuff that emanates from the West, whether through traditional outlets or digital outlets or social media, uh, that is, I'm not saying all of it, but if it is disinformation from those outlets, that's good disinformation. And anything that emanates from outside that geographical domain, if it is disinformation, then that is bad disinformation.
Can you define what is
Yeah,
good and what is bad, and how do you determine that?
now I don't want to get into the politics
Hmm.
of it, but if you just look at the conflict in Ukraine, so all the information that comes in from the West,
Hmm.
we are expected to believe it, that the uh, this is the truth, this is the gospel
Gospel,
truth.
huh?
And anything that emanates from Russia or countries that do not agree with that view, that is disinformation. So this is the bad disinformation, and that becomes the good disinformation. Because we don't know what is the quality of that information. We haven't filtered it. I will give you yet another example. State owned or state supported or state endorsed media outlets in Russia or China, they are labeled as such on social media.
Hmm.
They are not doing the labeling themselves. It's the platform which is doing the labeling. By the same yardstick, BBC should also be labeled that this is state sponsored media.
Hmm.
Uh, DW of Germany should be labeled that this is state sponsored media. Or American public broadcaster, NPR, or whatever, they should be labeled as state sponsored media or state media. So you are not labeling them, but you are labeling this bunch.
So they pick and choose
So they are
the
picking and choosing. And
platforms.
that is where the bias of the new information order comes in. You are subtly saying that this is disinformation and that is information. Now, since I do not know the quality of information coming in from that side, for me, both are disinformation.
Hmm.
Uh, but if that be the case, then that is good disinformation and this is bad disinformation, just like this whole construct of good terrorism and bad terrorism. So it's worrisome. And for instance, in India, one of the biggest challenges which we face is in the form of disinformation. And a whole lot of it is sloshing around.
So disinformation, fake news, are these are the same things, or there is some difference
Fake
according to you?
news is disinformation in the extreme, where it is totally false, totally fake. Disinformation can be manipulated information, it can be partial information, it can be out of context information.
So how government is planning to deal with it? How to regulate it in some manner?
Well, we have we have the criminal part of it
Hmm.
is covered under the IT Act.
Idea, yeah.
Now, the IT Act, of course, was framed when the internet was just happening, and amendments were subsequently made in bits and pieces. Uh, Some of the amendments were horrible; they were totally unacceptable in a democracy, like 66A.
66A. I was coming to that, huh?
So the time has come, and I think the IT ministry or minister has already commented on it, that perhaps the time has come to have a fresh look at the act. How relevant is it for our contemporary times?
Hmm.
uh, how much of it is still useful, how much of it is of no use, and how to sort of make it more of a governance architecture for the coming years.
So, what kind of revisions or new additions we may
No, that
expect?
is that is I think they will have to have a very close look whether at all to do it or not to do it. So that is a policy decision. But the non-criminality of it, non-criminal part of it, it is covered under the IT rules. So the IT rules has it has three sections. One section deals with all these platforms, the intermediaries,
Hmm.
whether it is Google, whether it is Facebook, whether it is Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, whatever,
Hmm.
WeChat, they chat,
Hmm. Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, and messaging services
Hmm.
like WhatsApp. There's a second section which deals with digital media. So, news platforms, news websites, news portals, things like that. And in that, it is further, broken up into bits and pieces. Like the print would be a standalone portal, but a newspaper which has a print edition and also a website. So, how do you balance the two? So, the website is being now treated as a separate
Hmm.
entity, and the IT rules, they lay down the conditions that to operate you must register, etc., etc., etc. You will be governed by these norms, you will be governed by these rules, you are expected to be in compliance, and some of it is of a general nature. So all that is being done. Now, despite that, compliance is not easy. Over the last 1 year, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has had to block, I think, 121
YouTube channels?
YouTube channels, Facebook pages, Twitter handles, and if you if you just if you were to look at the content, Russia ने atom bomb मारी यूक्रेन पर, that kind of a thing. It's not ridiculous. It's downright dangerous.
Also, there are communal contents, sir. Like, is it anti-India contents that you keep
See,
seeing?
anti-India is a very broad spectrum thing. Anything that you say against India, but some of it was not bordering. It was actually provocative. Uh, you take, photographs of elsewhere
Hmm.
were superimposed on Indian structures, Indian places of worship, and those visuals were then made into videos, and there was total bunk about how some mosque has been bombed or some temple has been bombed. And Tripura offers a very good example of how events that did not happen, events that did not occur, they became the grist for these YouTube channels. And sadly, they also found their way into a lot of mainstream reporting. Uh, Ultimately, it was all proven to be fake news. Some of these channels are damaging for India's national interest, both at home and abroad, relations with other countries. Many of these channels are Pakistan based.
How many of these 121? Do you remember?
Quite a few. Quite a few. Now, but blocking a channel or taking it off air or preventing access to it is only a partial solution. They are blocked in India, they're not blocked outside India.
Hmm.
A Twitter handle which is restricted in India is easily accessible outside India. So the mischief potential or the damage potential of this kind of disinformation or this kind of uh, fake news, that remains untouched in the larger world. So then, there we are.
So the government of India is perpetually at war with these all these international giants like social media giants. You take Facebook, Twitter, also YouTube, Google, and the cases are pending at multiple levels of judiciary. So, but then in some cases, all these companies, they have said that we are not content creator. We are just a platform. We just provide a platform, and they also resist any sort of supervision by Indian government and Indian laws.
When you say government of India is perpetually at war,
As in part of the cases.
that's a very strong
Yeah.
language. Uh, Government's job is not to be at war with any institution, individual, or organization. Government's job is to put in place a governance structure and ensure that there is compliance with that structure.
Hmm.
Now, the problem comes on three fronts. Government has very clearly defined what is an intermediary. Government has very clearly defined what is not an intermediary. Now, this is something which is of concern not only in India, but it is of huge concern across Europe. EU is battling with this whole perversion of the system or the freedom. Every day, the Senate has a hearing. Uh, Australia has had to bring in extraordinary laws. So, to say that it's a India specific issue, no,
Hmm.
it is a global issue. Now, where does it emanate from? It emanates from this perception or this belief or self belief that I am a big tech company. I am operating out of country A, B, C, wherever. I am governed by my own rules framed by my boardroom, and I refuse to acknowledge, leave alone be in compliance with the sovereign rules of any country. So that is an unacceptable position. You are like any other, I mean, Government of India welcomes any foreign company
Hmm.
to come and do business in India,
Hmm.
provided you are in compliance with Rule 1, Rule 2, Rule 3, Rule 4, Rule 5, whatever the rules are, whatever the system is, whatever the governance architecture for foreign firms doing business in India is. Moment you are in compliance, you're welcome.
But they are not.
But you cannot claim to be a foreign entity.
Hmm.
You cannot claim the right to do business in India as a foreign entity. After all, it is a business. I mean, they are not here doing charity. And yet you say that I will not be in compliance with your governance architecture. I have my own rules, I will follow those. Something like free speech. Uh, America has absolute free speech. Europe says that it has free speech, but in practice, it is restricted speech.
Hmm.
Every second thing that you say in Europe, it is filtered for checking out whether it is hate speech. In India, we do not have free speech. Our constitutional provision is very clear that it is restricted speech. You have the freedom of expression, you have the freedom of speech, provided A, B, C. There are riders attached to it. We have criminal laws which take a position on speech if it violates those three or four riders, which are constitutional provisions.
Hmm.
So, for a foreign platform to come and say, no, I mean, my rules say free speech. So, damn you, damn your rules, damn your laws, damn your concerns. We are not interested. We'll go by this. Now, I'm not saying that there is some huge evil intention behind it. It's basically there is a gap in understanding situations. Uh, Recently, we saw some turmoil in a Chandigarh educational
Hmm.
institution
Hmm.
over a student sharing some or
Videos,
one
clips. Hmm.
video or some video clips. That created so much turmoil over here. Now, without going into, I don't wish to sit in judgment,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I can't quite imagine something like this happening in Europe or America, causing this huge a turmoil. Their social ethos is different, their cultural ethos is different, their acceptance tolerance levels are different. We are different. Now, I am not going to change myself and recast myself just because you insist on asking, but why should you be different? Now, I, in my wisdom, by I mean the government in
Hmm.
its
Hmm.
wisdom, decides that this particular Facebook post, this particular YouTube video, this photograph on Instagram, or this post on Twitter can cause law and order situation over
Hmm.
here. I could have mobs running wild on the streets. For me, as the government, my primary responsibility is to ensure that you are not impacted, he is not impacted, she is not impacted by something which is done by him. Now, how do I do that? A country of more, I mean, almost 1.4 billion people. Look at the geographic spread of the country. I cannot have policemen patrolling every nook and corner. Or I can't put 1.4 billion people under surveillance. I mean, forget 1.4. Even if it had been zero point 0.4 billion, I shouldn't and I wouldn't have put them under surveillance. So the best option which I have is to take preemptive action.
Hmm.
And preemptive action comes by way of asking for something to be taken down, a page to be taken down, a handle to be blocked, a channel to be taken off air, or whatever.
So, sir, when the government flags its concern, like you explained, how fast these companies
They are very, I mean, and
take
it's something
action?
very sad. What I understand, my understanding is that there is a degree of reluctance. Now,
By all of them, like Facebook, Twitter,
no, let's not
Google?
take names, I
Hmm.
mean, by these platforms. And I quite get where they are coming from. One, I explained that this whole thing, that anything goes, if anything goes over there, why can't anything go over here?
Hmm.
Second is financial. Now, you won't believe there's 121 YouTube channels which you and I, he and she may turn up our noses and say,
Hmm.
This madness, who wants to sit and watch this?
Hmm.
But they had 3 million subscribers, 4 million subscribers. One video, which was, as I told you about, photoshopped images,
Hmm.
images that had videos that had been merged, that had 11 million views.
Hmm.
And the meter over there is linked to views and subscribers. So more the views, more the subscribers, more the money coming in through advertising. Now, if you have a YouTube channel and you have 3 million subscribers, all
Hmm.
the money is not coming to you.
It will also go to the
Only a
company.
fraction of what YouTube is making, or any other platform, Facebook is making, or whatever, Insta is making, a fraction of that comes to you. And they want to maximize the monetization. So I understand. I mean, I don't understand, but I get where they're
Hmm.
coming from.
But that is about financials. What about the country and the, as you said, the people?
No, but so there is the content part of it.
Hmm.
There is the resistance on account of their own internal reasons. And the third part is, look, no government wants to be seen as a random. No government wants to be seen as holding a fly swatter and just randomly swatting at content.
Hmm.
And least of all, contrary to popular opinion, the Prime Minister is least concerned, least bothered about criticism or abuse. And I mean, for him, it is not worth his time and effort. So but the compulsions become such,
Hmm.
the the necessities become such that unless you act, as I said, you could have violence in the streets, it could impact your relationship with other countries, it could cause larger turmoil, it could cause economic turmoil. Like, YouTube runs, supposing someone on YouTube or Facebook puts out a video, and this stuff happens, I'm not making it up,
Hmm.
that starting tomorrow gold is being devalued, or starting tomorrow all money will be seized by the government. You have crazies, you have loonies who actually create content around this, and they put it out. I mean, there were loonies who were using graphics software to create videos of how to accost and assassinate the prime minister.
Hmm.
So, what do you do? Somebody were to just imagine, somebody were to say, Print were to put out a video saying that starting tomorrow, all banks have been told not to honor checks or not to allow withdrawals. Now, how you frame it is a different thing, but
Hmm.
this is the essence of it. Can you imagine the run on the money, on depositors' money? Can you imagine the total meltdown that it will cause? And we are fast approaching that point. So, firm and effective action has to be taken. It is taken. But no solution is a complete solution. As I told you, I can block it over here,
Hmm.
I can take it off the air here, but it will happen elsewhere. It can be accessed elsewhere.
But sir, there was one action the government took against this TikTok. It shut down
No,
TikTok.
that's
So
a different story.
yeah, that
That's
is
to
a
do
different
with
story.
Chinese tech and
Hmm. But is there any is government mulling anything? I mean, to control this or to, as I said, to regulate these kind of platforms.
no, we have, as I explained to you, we have the IT rules in place.
But they are not abiding by those rules.
That's their problem. If government were to come to the conclusion
Hmm.
that this particular portal, this particular website, this particular platform is not in compliance with the IT rules, that they are willful violators of the IT rules, government will act against that entity. Or what it also does is that it enables citizens to act against that entity. So if I feel that Print has run a story or Print has done this which is violative of the IT rules, I can lodge a complaint against the Print. The idea behind the IT rules was not coercive action or coercive action by the state. The idea was to create a governance architecture that these are the rules, these are the norms, these are the conditions. Hey guys, please be in compliance.
In fact, sir, in India, a lot many opposition parties they allege that the media, I mean mainstream media, whatever form of media, they have been censored by the government, by the ruling
Now, where
parties.
is the censorship? Every day, every newspaper you open, the first story is against the government. The lead story is against the government. The lead op-ed is against the government. The lead edit is against the government. So where do you see the censorship?
So these are all political claims.
I don't think, I mean, unless you have lived through real censorship,
Hmm.
which my generation has lived through, both direct censorship as it happened during the emergency. I was not in the profession, but I know exactly what happened. Um, or indirect censorship. So, we don't have the time, but I could tell you story after story after story of how government exercised indirect censorship, or how censorship is not always from the government. How how corporate houses can also exercise censorship.
Hmm.
So the moment you hear the word censorship, you think of government, but that is not so.
Sometimes the political part, I mean the opposition parties, they sometimes call it censorship. Sometimes they also say that media is heavily controlled. So controlled is the
No, no,
word.
but where is the control? I mean, I can call up 10 media houses in front of you and request you to to run something. They will ask. They will just, if they are my friends, they will be very polite and say that okay, thank you. And if they are not my friends, they will be very rude and ask me to take a walk. So I don't think that is true. But if people are under the impression that free ride is an entitlement, anything goes is an entitlement, that I can say and do anything and get away with it is an entitlement, then they're wrong. So forget government. There are enough laws in the IPC and CRPC
Hmm.
for citizens to seek prosecution of you. Government's job, again, I can only repeat, is to create the governance structure, protect the rights of the stakeholders, protect citizens, and leave it at that. Now, every time, if you just check the government statements, every time a YouTube channel is blocked, every time a Facebook page is taken down, every time a Twitter handle is blocked or restricted, whatever, the statement gives specific reasons. It gives visual, uh, it provides visual evidence of why this was deemed to be necessary, or this action was deemed to be necessary. It gives statistics, like, I did not visit these sites and
Hmm.
find this out. The statement gives that they had 3 million subscribers, and this particular video has had 7 million views. And what is the video? A mosque has been set fire or bombed, or in one particular case, it was actually horrific. They claimed that I'm forgetting the details, but a prominent mosque somewhere else in another country had been bombed. Al-Aqsa had been bombed. Can you imagine the kind of response? I may agree with the response. I may not agree with the response. If there were mobs coming out into the street, as an individual, as a citizen of this country, I may take the position that this is so stupid. If even if it is true, this is not something which has happened in this country. How are we to be blamed for it? How are we responsible for it? On top of that, this is not even true. It is fake news. It is the worst possible example of disinformation. It is 100% fake news. So why are you guys being so stupid? Now that is my individual reaction.
Hmm.
But government is not individual. Government is state. And as I told you, state's responsibility is to ensure that those people do not come out into the streets, that there is no collateral damage or resultant damage, that all of us are do not cause or do not suffer injury or harm because of some YouTuber.
So there were a lot of efforts to start some indigenous social media platforms, like
That's
coups
a, that's a,
tried,
that's a, that's a, that's something
but it's not
on
picking
which
up. Hmm.
I have nothing to say. That's enterprise.
Hmm. No, I'm just trying to understand why this foreign influence has. I mean, this foreign platforms has so much
Big tech
influence.
always has an advantage. Big tech always has a market advantage. It has a user advantage. So big tech will always score. Now, the answer to big tech, and again, I'm just
Hmm.
moving away from what we were discussing. The answer to big tech is India tech.
Yes.
So, till such time you have India tech emerging, as like right now you have big tech, you have red tech, you have the dark dark tech. You don't have India anywhere.
Hmm.
So big tech is Western technology, American predominantly. Red tech is Chinese technology. The dark tech is the dark web. I mean,
Dark
where
web,
it's
yes.
about cybercrime, etc., 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 which is pretty organized. It's a global mafia, technology-enabled global mafia. But where is India tech? So the time has come to create our own vertical. That this is India tech. Here we are, and that is the only way to take on big tech.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks for your insight. And
Thanking you. I mean, I should be thanking you to give me the opportunity to bore you to death.
Lot of insights, sir. We all needed to hear that.